Hi, this is Gary Kelley with Cate Realty Group, and I am joined today by Siobhan Weber.
Hi, everybody.
She is a bigwig with Castanetti.
Eh,
I am a lowly agent.
every time, Gary, every time.
Well, I think VP of everything is a big deal. Anyway, let's stop with that. People don't want to hear about being VP of anything. They want to hear about a hypothetical question that I want to put your way.
Okay.
It's mid-December ish. If someone came to you today and said, I want to list my house, I want to sell it right away, blah, 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 what do you tell them? Do you say, you got to list it, you got to show it to sell it, and you got to get it on the market? And all? Or do you say, if you wait till February, you'll probably get more for the house than you would get in December? So how do you rationalize that for people?
Well, the thing I love about real estate is every transaction is different. So my advice will depend on the motivations of the seller client, right? So if they have a pressing need that drives the timeline sooner, then we definitely will talk about that. And so one thing I always emphasize to people though is that at this time of year, I like to look at data and I like to share that data with people. But this time of year, and as you even get into January and February, which are really considered early spring market, even though most people are still cold and not thinking about spring necessarily from a planting perspective, the real estate market starts to pick up, mid January, end of January. And then it's kind of like a bell curve, right?
Yeah.
So even when you get into that point, you're looking back on the worst 3 months of the year from a comparable data set perspective. So if anyone comes to me at this time of the year, we talk about their timeline and their priorities. If it is a rush, then that kind of dictates the timeline. And we talk about where the market is right now and where it's trending compared to where it will be and how much up we expect it to be on a percentage basis over the winter season. And then we translate that into dollars and cents. I think a lot of times folks have motivations other than top dollar, as hard as it can be to believe. So when taken all in, we kind of make the decision on timeline based on what works best for them.
I've had people say to me, I want to sell the house, but I don't want to have all those people traipsing through it. Well,
Yes.
okay, that's doable. It's a challenge, but it's doable. And I
Yeah.
certainly get it. And I also get people that don't want to have showings during, the holidays. But at the same time, you have to show it to sell it. So what do you recommend people do if they want to sell, but they don't want to have constant showings through the holidays?
Yeah. So the farthest on that spectrum we can go is say we'll only do open houses, right? So you'll control the time blocks. We request varying time blocks so we capture the most amount of people, meaning a twilight open house, which might be more of, a drive time or traditionally a drive time with all this work from home. Call it a 4:30 to 6:30 sort of time in the weekday, not on a Monday, maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday. Even a Friday, surprisingly, has done very well for us from a traffic perspective. And then we try to do a couple hours on the weekend. Midday Saturday is kind of your prime time. And then a little later on Sunday, people want their mornings, whether it's for worship or sleeping in or some combination of worshiping, sleeping in. I don't judge. We just try to go a little later on
Tuesday
Sunday.
sunrise on 101.
So we talk about that. But one thing I've really found from a showing perspective is that people know, and again, it changes every time, but people know when it's most convenient for them generally to leave their house. And so what I ask people to give me is not necessarily just a series of open house times, but also when are you typically not home anyway? And then we use a system, as you well know, called showing time. And we can literally go in and set what I call blackout dates, essentially, or times even, to a really granular level. And if you tell me, you know what, I'm out of the house every day Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. We can do only showings during that time period. And that's kind of a hybrid approach. So you do still have people coming through your house for private showings, but we're funneling them in times that are most convenient for your life. So again, it depends, but we try to get as much visibility as possible within the parameters we're given by the clients.
I don't relate to drive time anymore.
All right. Are you being towed back to Massachusetts or?
I did arrange for a tow back to Massachusetts. It would be about as expensive as shipping the car.
Oh my.
We're talking hundreds of dollars.
Wow, wow, wow. That's
It is
intense.
what it is.
Yep.
But when you have clients that want to sell their house and you can limit showings and stuff, uh, I do tell people, if you don't want a showing on Christmas Day, we're not going to have one. And
Right.
I know that that's always an extreme perspective, but there are some people that say, Christmas Day is an ideal time because we're not going to be home. The house is going to
Right.
be vacant and you can show it then. Okay. I'm
Yep.
not going to necessarily say I'm going to be over there every hour showing the house, but I can certainly say we'll do showings during certain hours on Christmas Day if that's indeed what's important to them.
So actually, the way you phrase that actually makes me think of a question for you with regard to accompanied showings by the
Hold on.
selling agent. Did I
The
read your mind?
questions are to you.
No, no, I want to exchange the flow rate of conversation. Do you like to accompany showings? Do you think listing agents, sorry for the dog, do you think they should accompany?
I am not a fan of accompanied showings. I'm not a fan of accompanied showings because I believe that the licensed agent that's showing the house, because that's a key thing. It's not just anybody. It's not like the front door is open and you can walk in. The licensed agent showing the house is probably best equipped to go through the house and work with their client what the key points are that the client wants to talk about. And it's hard to have a free flowing conversation when the other agent, the listing agent, standing there, listening to every word. And if someone says something about, I just don't like the way this house smells. No, I'm serious. It happens. Okay. The listing agent can come and say, well, we can use that lavender fabuloso. It's wonderful. Or I happen to have an ozone. But, those are the kinds of things where I think it's prudent for the buyer's agent to be able to have an unfettered discussion with the client without having to have the listing agent there. Now, if
I
I've got a client that says, I don't want anyone in here if you're not here. Okay, we walk through the pros and cons of that and have that discussion with them. But at the end of the day, my recommendation is go in without us being there because it's going to be more powerful in the end.
agreed, agreed. So, what do you say when you're going through the pros and cons when the seller says or intimates maybe that, well, if you don't accompany the showings, then what are you doing? Right? You got to work for your money.
Well, what I'm doing is I'm listing the house. I'm taking the professional photos. I've got a floor plan that I always produce. Put the stuff on all the different systems, which some of it's automated, some of it's not. Um, those are the things I do to try to generate a buzz around the property. I like to generate buzz everywhere before the property goes live, and then boom, the property's live, and then try to let people in as much as possible. I don't feel a need to stand at the house and show everyone that comes through there. Now, if someone says to me, we've got valuables in the house, well, you should probably take the valuables out anyway, whether I'm here or not. I'm not into your drugs, whatever they may be, but you don't want a little kid. Well, you don't want a little kid stumbling upon a pill bottle and then getting in trouble. Um,
Right.
I'm knock on wood. I've never had anything stolen in an open house. We've had people say to us, "Oh yeah, I lost that earring. It disappeared," and then shyly, humbly, when they actually do move out, they find the earring and say, it really wasn't stolen. I don't want to have that call. I don't want someone calling and saying, there was an iPad sitting on the bed and all of a sudden the iPad's gone. What did you guys do with it? The
Right.
answer is, I didn't do anything with it.
Right, exactly. But there's a lot going on and there are a lot of people through. We're not, trained police officers either, right? So better to just not have those items on site. Absolutely.
Right. So, Siobhan, I get what you would do at this time of year. Thank you for sharing. And we'll continue the conversation.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.